Painting Harry the Hammer.
Okay then, that's a couple of layers of the Men of White down on the skeleton parts. A fairly even coat, a little bit trickier than I thought. Had to resort to another small but still pretty inexpensive brush that I use for this sort of rough work, as well as my eyeliner brush. The eyeliner brushes I do favour for big open spaces like this, so you can get a really thin coat. I think this is probably only one coat on. Okay, next stage will be to pick out some of the details inside pile of skeletons. So any wood parts, so these coffin shields, and inside the other shields, I will be using this Idrinn flesh, which I use for a flesh-based coat, but also for most of my wood. Any parts that I want to be bronze, gold, are going to be sort of like the hilts on a couple of these swords and a few on this shield. I'm going to be picking out in this warp block bronze. Any bits I'm going to have as silver, so the spear and sword blades, quite a few little bits, I'm going to pick out in this Mournfang brown. And a couple of the shields have either a fabric covering here, or this one's got a sort of enamelled looking bit, and that I am going to do in this blue. So okay, so there's been a few changes to plan. So as I said, I've done the wood in the flesh, any bits that are going to be the rusted metal in the reddy brown. But I've also done a few sort of ambiguous spots and some hair in trusty Rhinox brown, one of my most used colours. I've done the metal in the gold metal or the bronze metal in this warp block bronze. I've also picked out some leather parts, some sort of jerkins and straps and things in this XV88. And I've left off the blue because I'm going to do that in a couple of stages actually. Next step will be a highlight on the wood. So usually I would use one of these two. This gives a bit of a fresher look for fresh wood, and this one, so I'll be using this one today to give that kind of more worn look. The Zandri Dust. So I will be trying to pick up any of the details on the spear hafts because they're kind of hexagonal, and on these shield fronts and a few other spots. So I'll get that done now. So I'm applying this somewhere between a dry brush and an edge highlight. Just try and pick up these edges with not very much paint on my brush at all. And if I get a bit on the other areas, as long as it sort of stays a bit streaky, I think we're okay because we'll pick it up as wood grain. Okay, I've got a lot of the wood shading where I want it. I've even created some detail where there wasn't any on the back of the shield because it looked like it should be wood on both sides, and all the spears are highlighted how I want. So I think a lot of you can guess the next step. I'm going to give it a all over brown wash. Now I think I'm going to go with the Army Painter Strong Tone because it gives a bit more contrast than the Agrax Earthshade, so I think this will help pick out a lot more of the skeleton details. So it's going to take a little while to dry, so I'm going to put this on and go and do something else for a little while. Okay, so while that's still drying, I had a look at some of the art for Harry the Hammer. So we've got the older picture and the newer picture. So I've decided to go with a black and gold theme, as I think that both best represents the picture that matches this this model. So I've started by going over all the areas with a pretty thin coat of the warp block bronze. Once again applied nice and quickly, using the cheapo eyeshadow brush. So the next stage will be to go over that with this Retributor armour, and depending on how that looks, I might even knock that back with some Earthshade just to blend it all together. So, but I'm going to work on all of the gold at once, and then any sort of enamelled panels like in the shield and the helmet and shoulder, I will go back and do after the metal. So Harry's had a brush of the Retributor armour and then a wash of the Earthshade to knock it back a bit, and I'm pretty happy with how these golds are turning out. I've also given a similar process to the gold parts on this base, the hilts and things, and I'll probably do some third degree on there. The next step on the base here will be adding some of this Kato Red highlight, this orange, and I'll be using this custom made bit of sponge on a stick to dab a very light rust effect. So most of the paint back off, just sparingly, real gentle, just to add these rust spots in, and I'll do that basically all over. So I'll start that now. Okay, so this session I have used the oxide on the shields. I think that's turned out quite nicely. I've re-highlighted the wood sections with the Zandri dust. I've put the blue in on any of the sort of fabric parts and on these shields. I'll highlight in a second. And I've gone around all the brown and orange rusted metal parts, anywhere where I thought would look a bit of wear after the skeletons have been using these weapons, with this P3 Quicksilver to try and give this effect here, which I think that's quite out nicely. I tried a bit of a freehand on the shield, which hasn't gone so well, partly because of the lines going through, but before that it was kind of looking a bit plain, so I'll probably try and do a bit more work. Oh yeah, I also highlighted, re-highlighted the bone back to the original bone colour, which was Menoth White base, and then did a very edge highlight on some of the bits with the Menoth White highlight. As you can guess from the names, these go quite nicely together. So, since last time we saw Harry, I've gone around and highlighted any raised edges with solid gold, and then extreme highlight with the Quicksilver. So that's places like the horns, the tips of his weapon and stuff, to really try and make that pop. And then the hammer, I've used a highlight of the Warlock Bronze, mixed it with a bit of this cold steel, and then pure cold steel, and then the Quicksilver, Mithril Silver, on the hammerhead there, and I'll be doing the same on these chains. And then after that, I will be just filling all the panels in with the black. Hopefully that'll make his armour really start to pop. Okay guys, a little bit of a sprint to the end. Obviously glued Harry back on and followed the same steps as I did on the base with the skeletal parts. I obviously painted his panels in black, dry brushed his cloak with a dark grey, which would be the grey coat grey from P3. I used the same to do some sort of line highlights on the armour panels, and the horns on his helmet, I've used the same paints as I've used on the skeleton, but I've tried to sort of blend them to create these sort of horns. And I followed my normal skin recipe, which I'm sure I'll cover some other time, on his elbows there. And I think that's pretty much done. So, not my best work, not particularly proud of it, but I'm happy to call it finished for now. I will give it a coat of matte varnish, But yeah, end of the video. So shout out to Johnny Watson fans. A few of them have been sent my way. If you don't know who Johnny Watson is, look him up on YouTube. Does some nice painting videos and more based towards historic gaming. If you like what I did here, let me know. If you think I can make some improvements to my videos, definitely let me know. And if you're interested to see more, please subscribe. And I'll see you in the next video, guys. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye.